Hello, and welcome to this tutorial on a Google add-on called Doctopus. Now this add-on has just got some great features, very useful for teachers in the classroom, and it operates in two modes. I can either use it in the old way to distribute files to students, or I can use it in the new way, which is to do the same thing, but through the Google Classroom environment if that's available to me. Now you can see that I am logged into an account already. I'm in a Google Drive, and this particular account does have access to Classroom. So first we'll look at it without using Classroom, and then we'll look at it with the Classroom option. And I also have a set of tabs open in a different browser, and this is the perspective from a student's perspective. So I have a student account created, and we'll look at it from both sides. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to open a new tab so that I don't lose where I am, and I'll go to the web store, and I'm going to search for Doctopus. And I don't find it. As a matter of fact, I find this thing called Grubric Web App Launcher, which we'll come back to later, but I don't find Doctopus, and that's because Doctopus is an add-on. And if you remember, an add-on doesn't appear in the web store. It's something we have to add from the particular application we're using. So in this case, we're going to create a Google Sheet. And I'll name this right away. I'll name it My Roster. Let's just call it ELA period 1. Okay, so give it a good descriptive name where I will know what students are associated with this particular file. I'm going to go to Add-on, and I don't see it in here. I see this Fluber thing, but I don't see it, so I'll say Get Add-on. I'll search for Doctopus here, and you'll see that now Doctopus does appear. So I'm going to click the Free button. I will give it access. And it'll pop up a little message letting me know that Doctopus is in here. And now I'm going to go through the setup for Doctopus mode. So add-ons. Oh, there it opened up for me. And the first thing I have to do is select the mode. And you can see here that one option is to take your class list from Google Classroom and use that to create this initial document. And that's a great choice if you're using Google Classroom. But if you're not, let's say distribute drive resources on a roster. Okay, as you step through this process, you will get help underneath. So it's going to identify the important things to think about for each step. So now I'm in roster mode. And it's asking me to identify a starter resource you want to copy and distribute to students. Okay, so I can still come back to that. I don't have to do that right now. It can be a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, a presentation, a whole folder containing other things. So this is a powerful option. And then other things as well. So for right now, I'm going to select a roster. And I don't have a roster. If I did, that would be great, and it would save me some time. I could actually have my students go and fill out a Google form with the right fields and then modify that to use it as a roster. But for right now, I'm going to build a new one. Okay, it gives me some information about that. It's also going to tell me that I can import this from Hapara's teacher dashboard. So that's another application. If you were using that, you could look into it. But since most of us aren't at this point, we're going to create directly on this sheet right here our roster. So I'm going to put on this sheet. Okay, it's going to have me create the roster, decide whether I want to generate student folders, which I generally do, and then copy and distribute starter files. And I can always add to them later, that's not a problem. So I'm going to create a roster. And the only thing I need for this roster is a first name, a last name, and an email address. So I have some test accounts for a class that I can use, and I'm going to pause the video for a second so you don't have to watch me type them in, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've created my roster with some samples. And now I'm going to click the refresh button. It recommends that my classes not be larger than 40. And I don't want to put all my students in one. So if I have multiple sections, if I'm teaching 3 sections of Algebra 1, I would make 3 rosters. Okay, now it would like me to give a roster name. So I'm going to name it the same thing that I've named my file. My roster, ELA, period 1. Okay, and it's going to show me a file structure that it's going to create for me. And if I want to know more about that file structure, I can just mouse over it. This is my roots folder. It will be created right at the top of my drive. And it can be shared with teachers using the drive interface. So I could just go in and share this folder with other teachers if I'd like. This folder is where all the Doctopus spreadsheets and grading will go on. So we have the option to do grading through this, and this teacher folder is where all that will be stored. All documents you put here are editable by all students on the roster. This is a folder where you can put documents that you would like students to see but not be able to edit. So you can see that this is almost a precursor to Google Classroom. It does a lot of those functions. And then these are the students. So within this folder it lists all my students, and you can see that it's showing 3 examples, but all of those files will be created there. So I'm going to have that create all those folders for me now. So you can see it's in process. It's created a number of them. Here's another one. And within a minute or 2 it'll have everything created. Now it's added these 2 additional columns. One is for student folder key. So this is just a way that Doctopus finds the actual folder with the student material. And the other is to exclude, and we'll use this later on. So if I want to run a particular function from Doctopus, I can choose to exclude one or more students from that. So maybe if it's not appropriate that a student get a particular document, etc., I can do that. Okay. I could come back here at any time and I could update from my sheet. So if I add new students down here, if I come back to this area, I can update and it will create my additional accounts. So I'm going to say next. And it's going to ask you what type of sharing type you want. Individual, what it means it creates the same separate individual docs for each student in your class, so everybody gets their own copy. Creates 1 copy of a doc for each student based on their level as designated in a group column on your roster. So that's a nice feature. I can vary by student group, or project groups. Create 1 shared copy of a doc for each project group as designated in the group column. So a single document that everybody works on. And then there's also a whole class option. So I could set this up so that a single document goes to the whole class, and that would be, I think, more from a view perspective if I'm not expecting any interaction with the document. So I have to select sharing type. And in this particular type, I'd like individual all the same. So everybody gets the same one, but they can do their own edits on it. Now, the whole class access level. This setting relates to whether students can access work by other students. And if you don't want to let them do that, leave it to no access. Maybe you have an assignment where students are going to comment on other students' work or help them revise it, etc. So you could choose then from a variety of different options, such as they can only view it, or they can comment on it, so they can use that comment feature in Google Docs to do that. Or you can allow them fully to edit it. For right now, I'm going to leave no access. Although this can be a really nice option under certain circumstances. Assign student access level. So students should be allowed to edit their own work. I think that's the best. I can't see a reason not to allow that. Now, what you might want to do, though, is check this box so that the editors, meaning the students, cannot change the sharing permissions. This is a personal choice. If you want to allow a student to share their Google Doc or Google Sheet or whatever they're working on with another student, you can leave that unchecked. But if you want to ensure that all the work is done individually by the student, then you're going to have to check that box. And I'm just indicating here that this is the folder that I want to deliver all student work to. I can also, by Gmail addresses, in a list separated by commas, invite co-teachers to this environment, which I'm not going to do right now, and I will save and continue. It may take Doctopus a minute or two. And this is the folder holding the assignment template. So where am I going to put the files that will be, in my case, copied out into multiple versions and distributed to students? I see no reason to change this particular folder. This is the one that Doctopus is going to create for me, and I'll just use that. And this is these are the templates that will be distributed. Well, I don't have anything right now, so let me just come click on the link, and I'll create a couple of quick files here. So you can see that that sheet that's holding roster information is already in the folder. And I'm just going to make a new doc. Okay, so I created a series of documents. I'm going to hit refresh, and they're listed in here. What I want to do is assign this document 1. These others are kind of class documents that they look at, and we'll look at those in another video. But for right now, this is an assignment I want them to have, and I say save and continue. I'm brought to a screen where I have to create a folder for the assignment. So I can choose something I've already done, or I can just use this button to create it. I'm just going to edit the title here and call it Assignment 1. It's a little more intuitive to me on the other end, and I'll create the folder. Okay, I do have the option of sending them an email to say this is ready. Now remember, I'm operating outside of the Google Classroom environment, so it will be sent to their Gmail address that's listed here. If they're not actively, and I can include a message, personal message down here. If I want to include some personalization, I just have to look up here to see what the variables I can use are. So in this case, I'm going to put in $ first, capital N, name, and then a comma. And I can write them the message, and it will go to their, it'll be started with their first name. And options you have a first name, last name, email, a student key folder, so that would be to create a link to this folder here, or to exclude. Now if I don't want to send them an email, I can leave that unchecked and just save and continue. Okay, now it's created some additional categories for me. There'll be a link here eventually. When it was last edited, what grade they received, written feedback, etc. But I can just run copy and share right now. And it will take a second or two, but now it's distributing those files out to students. So let me pause the video and be back soon. Okay, all jobs are complete, so I can manage and assess this assignment. And this brings me to the main features I have in Doctopus once an assignment has been set up and distributed. Okay, so we'll look at this in the next video.